In the last video we saw how we could grab the data from WordPress, but we actually couldn't render it correctly into our view. So what we're going to be doing in this one is we're going to change up our created here a little bit, and we're going to create it into something called an async created. And this async function is a declaration that defines an asynchronous function, which then returns this async function object. That means we have some operators now we can use, and one of those is called await that we're going to be using, which is it's just waiting for the promise we created in our code, and we can only use this await if it's inside the async function. So that's why we're going to use this async here. Now this means we're going to change this up quite a bit, and basically I'm not deleting this for now, but I'm just gonna mark this out because we are going to use some of this, but we are also going to start basically a little bit over. So what we want to do just above or after your data object up here, we're just going to create something called an async created instead. Now in this one we're doing similar things, but we can now use specific things like the await operator in here. And the first thing we want to do is we want to create a constable or a const here, and we want to set this, we want to give it a name as well, so we're going to call it response. And then we're going to basically copy some of the things we did before. So we want to grab our information, this one here we had before, this is what we want to grab, and then being able to use this, and now we're able to use this await function. So this works together with the asynchronous function we just created. Now we're awaiting for things to happen. So still sort of similar to what we did before, we just put it in a constable. A constant, not a constable, a const. Here we go. And the next part we want to do is we want to take this, just like we did in the previous one, and we call this VPItems. This is just like the one we have down here, so I'm actually just going to copy this like this. Now we have this, the data we're grabbing, we're putting them into our object up here like we did before, right? So still very similar, other than we created an asynchronous and we're using this await here. Awesome. Now before, as you can see down here, we did this response and then we saved them, and then for each item here, we did it for each down here. We're going to do a little bit more old school way of doing it. We're going to create a for loop here. And in this for loop, we are going to set up what we want. So we want to create the const here, and that's going to be the VPItem singular, no, without VPItem, like this VPItem, and then of this VPItem. So again, we're just iterating through each product or each item we have in this one. Cool. Next part, we're going to create a const here, and we're going to call this image data. I think we called it before as well. Probably, yeah, we did. So we're reusing whatever we had before, and this we're setting to, where do we have it down here? We're grabbing this entire string as we did before. So this is, again, I'm just expanding this a little bit so we can see all of the code. If I can, here we go. Sorry. Yep. So very similar to what we had before. There we go. As you can see down here, we're just setting it into this const here instead. Whoops, sorry. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab where we store the link of the path for when we go through into this specific one here. So we're just going to paste this in, and that's going to be called VPItems.imageUL. So again, you can just copy this from down here and paste this in after. So this is our for loop that iterates through every one of our products. It's very similar to this one, it's just shorter, less code, and now we're creating it asynchronously. So we can actually tell the system or tell Vue that once this is loaded, then you're going to render something, not as it does down here. Vue creates something, creates the template, it renders everything, and then the data comes afterward, but it doesn't get rendered because it's there too late. But up here we can now tell the system, hey man, the data is now here, now you should render whatever we want you to render. Cool. So the last thing I want to add up here is I want to add something called done loading, because we need to tell the system or tell Vue that once the data is here, so once it goes through all of this stuff here, we're going to set our done loading to true. So now we got all the data we want. Now this changes from false to true, and then we want it to render. That means we also have to do something up here. After our image URL, we have to create the done loading, and we're going to start off by having this as false, because the data is not here, it's not done loading the data, right? That's what you can call it, whatever you want, load data or whatever, or loading just. But anyways, now we set this up, and if we click, we can just see there's a small error. That's fine. Actually, that's probably not fine. Let's just quickly check what it is. Oops. So done loading. Of course, it's not an equal sign, it's a comma sign like this. So hopefully now it works. Excellent. So I was a bit too quick there, but yeah, now we have this set up. Our new async is created. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we actually render this based on when the data gets here.